this is Todd and you're watching Real Space Junk. If you could, take a second to subscribe to my channel. Today we're going to look at some objects that I've got some questions about. This is more of the JPL and NASA surplus. This first item is a Micrometeorite Detector Amplifier, and these were on almost all of the early satellite missions. They were trying to get a sense of how much impact the satellites would have from very small meteorites. So they put microphones on the outside shell to record the impacts, and basically had two mics because one would be for the really small impacts and then one for the slightly larger impacts. This particular amplifier is made by Labco. They were a very specific NASA service provider, only for a few years, but made a lot of equipment for them. The patent for this is listed on the NASA web pages, and looks like it's from about 1961. So this is probably from somewhere between 1959 and 1961, since they generally patented things after they put them in production. As you can see, it has a place for two microphones and two outputs and a 6-volt power supply. This has got the connectors built into this, so that this has actually been wires that were cut, so it would be possible to reuse the inputs here and redo the mics. The just very standard transducer style microphones were used for these. This next object is very interesting little, it almost is like the shape of a turntable tone arm head, but it's got a couple of pieces of metal, and as you can see, this end is for a coaxial cable, and it looks like some sort of a suspension in here of maybe like it's almost an amber-like suspension. Whole thing is made of some sort of a steel, and is magnetic. Even these pieces on top are magnetic. And to make it more interesting, I found this later. It looks very similar. As you can see, similar sort of metal, same sort of amber-like consistency. And lo and behold, they match right up perfectly. So I don't know if a cord ran through there or some piece of metal or something, or if it got clamped later on. I really don't know. But my guess is it's either some sort of a transducer that would have been attached to a bigger speaker to connect to one of these micrometeorites, or possibly some sort of a sensor for, like a solar sensor or magneto sensor of some sort. Not really sure. If you know, please let me know. And the third object I've got that I'm interested in is this. As you can see, it's also got some sort of epoxy resin that's suspended in. And this has a gold terminal on this end. And then it's got some sort of metal terminals here. But the other interesting thing about it is it's very lightly magnetic. So as you can see, magnet pulls it, but also pushes it away too. So it's got some sort of a magnet on the inside. Might just be some sort of a sensor as well, just like the other. And imagine it connected here and here for some sort of polarity. But I do not know. You cannot see through the ends. And here's a bonus item. It's marked 1524 and 21118A. Has two metal leads and some sort of a epoxy resin. It's marked res at 25 degrees Celsius, 44440 ohms. I guess some sort of resistance to it. Last thing we're going to look at some of these Geiger-Müller tubes. These were some of the tubes used to measure radiation for discovery of the Van Allen belt. You can see this is probably the most common one. This is a 6108. Here's one of the boxes for you. You can see this is a USN CBON designation, made in Brooklyn, New York. This is another interesting one. It's not a marked one, a little bit smaller, interesting construction on it. And then finally, this one. This is a, let's see if you can read it there, 6538, and it says 5309. So 5309, I'm assuming, is the designation, and it's a 6538's the date code probably.